Thank you for tuning in to Build Back Better. I'm Arundel County Executive, and this is our weekly show where we are addressing topics related to the coronavirus pandemic and how we're handling that in Anne Arundel County. We have, I think we did 8 town halls, virtual weekly town halls, started at the beginning of this whole experience, and then we shifted over to issue by issue discussions with panelists that we select from the community. And we've done mental health, we've done nutrition assistance, and we've done affordable housing and rental assistance, and eviction prevention was our last one. And tonight we're going to talk about small business and what's happening in our communities with our small businesses and what we as local government can do to help out. So before I get into that, I want to just tell you what we're not going to talk about, which is the policies. This won't be the focus anyway. I mean, I'm happy to address this, and if there are questions about it, I'll answer them when we get to the question part. But the orders that we are under, the governor's orders that closed essential businesses in the state are still in effect. There was some loosening of those orders announced last Wednesday. The Central Maryland counties either opted not to go as far as the governor offered or didn't move at all. The governor told all of us that we should not move forward if we didn't have the support of our health officers, if we didn't think it was the right thing to do. So now we have counties in the state moving at slightly different paces. And really that it does impact retail businesses. The governor, we thought, was going to say retail could be open to curbside pickup, ended up announcing that 50% capacity would be allowed. We went with curbside pickup in the county. In the city of Annapolis, they went with one person allowed in, but acknowledged that sometimes that might be a couple. That all just happened at the end of last week. There's still a ban on gatherings in the state. The governor's ban on gatherings of more than 10 people. The exceptions to that are now in some retail establishments and in houses of worship. And we had expected him to announce that there would be outdoor religious activities with social distancing of limited sizes. And then the next day found that it was going to be 50% capacity based on the fire code, which can be quite a large number. So after consultation with our health officer, we, on 24 hours notice, had to make a decision that we would not go all the way. We would allow curbside pickup that had not been allowed before at retail businesses. Not that much help, I understand, to a lot of retail businesses, especially when we've got the essential retail businesses like the big box stores completely open. So absolutely not fair, and something that we're talking to the governor's office about trying to get changed and trying to get fixed with something that's more consistent. The question about churches and religious gatherings, our health officer was very clear that was one area where around the country there had been a lot of cases where funerals had taken place and where larger gatherings had taken place outside of the orders, and was not comfortable yet moving beyond 10 people in the church. So we did open it up to gatherings of as many as 10 people. So small groups could come in and meet with their pastors and that sort of thing. And then the third area that has been controversial and is something that has me thinking very hard right now is what to do about beauty salons and barbershops where the work is very close, obviously, to the person that's being getting the haircut. And so we opened that up from what the governor had said before, which was that you could get a haircut if you had a letter from your employer saying you needed to get a haircut, and one at a time in the establishment, to saying you no longer need that, but still one at a time in the establishment. So I can honestly say that these were the most difficult decisions that I've had to make as county executive in the shortest amount of time, because we had to instantaneously, so that people could learn about what the guidelines were going to be. We had to make those decisions in 24 hours. And then what I did was follow up with that and say, I needed to convene a group that would be a sounding board for these kinds of decisions. We don't know what the governor's going to do going forward in terms of additional opening and when it's going to happen. So we need to have in place interest groups there that I can at least go to with the health officer. So tomorrow morning, we're having the very first meeting of our recovery working group that includes a representative from the chambers, from the county. It includes the head of our Economic Development Corporation board representing business. Also includes leaders of our two hospitals, Anne Arundel and Baltimore Washington Medical Centers. It includes a representative from organized labor, representative from the faith community, a pastor, and one Democrat and one Republican from the county council, and myself. So we will be reviewing the decisions that were made, and we will be looking each week at the metrics that come out when they do come out from the health department, and we will be continuing to communicate with the state and with our neighbors in other counties. This is going to be a long process of reopening, and nobody can say exactly when what is going to happen because there are so many factors that are outside of our control. So what we're going to talk about tonight is, apart from all that, what can we do to help businesses to reopen safely so that their customers have confidence and their employees have confidence. So that's our topic. And we want to hear from businesses about what they're doing, because there's some really innovative work that's going on that businesses are doing with no guidance from government, sometimes with their trade associations guiding them. And that's an interesting topic that we'll cover. But we also want to look at what our Economic Development Corporation is doing and what the Annapolis Economic Development Team is doing and what our Annapolis and Anne Arundel Chamber is doing. So our panel is, we have Mark Kleinschmidt from the Anne Arundel and Chamber of Commerce, who's the CEO of our Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce. We have Steve Primrush, who's the VP of Financial Services for our Anne Arundel County Economic Development, as well as Keisha Haith from Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, and then Steve Rice from the Annapolis Economic Development. He's a manager. And then finally, we have Jaylene Fonseca, who owns a restaurant and has a really fascinating story about how her business has adapted to the current situation. So I'm going to go through each one, and then we're going to have a conversation. We're going to take some of the questions that have been coming in and that will still be coming in through Facebook comments, and see if we can have a good conversation about these issues. We may even come up with some new ideas that we can implement. So let me start with Mark, and what I'd like Mark to do, and I think he's prepared to do, is give us a overview of the situation for businesses and what our Anne Arundel Chamber is doing. Still on mute.
There we go.
All right.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity tonight to chat. It has been I guess what a lot of people call a black swan event, something that's just unusual and very unexpected. And it has had a significant impact on us all as individuals, the local municipalities, the county, the state, the country, and the world. And we're still trying to figure it out. And when we focus in on the small business, those are the ones that are most challenged. You mentioned how some of the larger big box and the corporations have some advantages because they have a fair amount of cash reserves and whatnot. They can weather the storm and move forward. But it is going to be a big challenge for small business. Small business makes up most of the employers in the state, and that's just not here in Maryland. It's everywhere. So just some facts that I think a lot of us already know. We had done a survey, the chamber in partnership with the city, and what we came away with is we found that 56% of the businesses did not have more than a month's reserves to carry on. And this survey was done at the beginning of May. So now they're to the point of starting to run out of cash. We also found out that 80% of the businesses, and we had about 200 businesses in this survey, 80% of the businesses applied for some type of financial aid. We don't know if they had gotten the aid, but the point being is they needed the aid to keep going. And most of that money was going to go towards covering the cost of employment. A lot of businesses have made a very hard decision where they have had to furlough or let people go. right now because they have no cash flow. So this was why I called it a black swan event. It's just so different. It wasn't like an economic slowdown. It was an economic stop. No cash flow came in. So, businesses had to really rethink what they were going to do or how they would survive. So the path moving forward, what we've been doing at the Chambers every Tuesday, we've been having a webinar that we call Moving Forward, and we focus in on a particular topic. So we're moving in that way. And one of the themes that we're stressing is that we need to approach this, a business needs to approach this in two ways. Repair and rebuild. Rebuild or repair now in the short term. Get your business back. How can you generate some new revenue? Because the survey also indicated, and national surveys have shown this too, that businesses are anticipating 25% loss compared to last year, and some even more. So they're going to see a significant cash flow problem. So how do they stay afloat? And we're already seeing, unfortunately, some businesses declaring bankruptcy on the national level and also locally. So there's going to be some real pain here, but businesses need to move forward to get ready to repair. And I'll come back and talk a little bit about some of the things that they are looking for to repair. On the rebuild side, this is the longer term. I think the repairing part's got to be, how do you get through 2020 and build a bridge to 2021 so you can continue to grow your business into the future? But we're going to move into what we all hear, the new normal. And what I hear a lot of people define the new normal is the 75% economy, that a lot of businesses are going to look at having revenue equal to about 75% of what they had in 2019. So the first thing a business has got to focus on is bringing back its employees. Make sure that you've got your good staff to come back. That's why there was the focus on the payroll protection program. The other thing is your customers. How are you going to bring your customers back? And the other thing is how do you maintain your finances, your rent, is an opportunity to renegotiate your leases and do that. So rebuilding is going to be very, very important. So businesses need to make operational changes. And one of the things that is definitely going on, as we're seeing it here tonight, as we meet virtually, is a move towards technology. Businesses are going to use a lot more technology, small and large. Telemedicine is going to be a big movement that way. The other piece of the puzzle becomes is how else can a business use technology and keep in contact with their customers. So I think social media is going to become another big element for what businesses need moving forward. And specifically, the two things that we're hearing the most that businesses really want is they need aside from money and cash flow, and that's why there's this push to open. But it's going to be all about consumer confidence and the customer feeling comfortable to go back to a store, a restaurant, a bar, or the doctor's office, or wherever, that they're safe and it's a healthy environment. So that's first and foremost. So, and then there's the employees, and then there's the customers. And then the other thing that businesses really want is information. As the county executive was talking about, somewhat of the confusion of what are the rules or regs to open. And unfortunately, it's going to be different for every business, and one size fits all doesn't work. So there's going to be a need to be flexible and come up with a way that businesses know what to do. And then it's going to be incumbent on the businesses to do it, but also let customers know that it is a clean, safe, and healthy place for them to come back. And once that starts happening, we can start to rebuild. And I think we will have that new normal. So it's a little bit of an overview there from the Chamber's view.
That statistic you gave from your survey, that only 56% had only 1 month of cash reserves. Was that right?
Yes.
That's staggering. I mean, we know that the big corporations have more than that generally and have better access to credit. And I've been in business where I was running a business close to the margin too, and you can't get credit at that point unless you get one of the government programs. And every week you get closer and closer to the point where you know that you can never pay back the debt that you start to accumulate, even if you can get the credit. And it's brutal. So I completely understand the pressure to move quickly to get businesses open because they die and can't be brought back at a certain point, and that means that those employees can't come back. So that's the heavy part of the weight that that I think, and that's why there's such a so much civic engagement right now on the topic of when do we open, how soon do we open, what is open and what's not open. People have a lot at stake, and so that's why we are where we are right now. And it's good that people are speaking out. These are difficult decisions. So, okay, well, we'll get back to you, Mark, on some of that. Thank you for all of that input and all the experience you bring to all of this. I know you were the head of the chamber in Newcastle, Delaware for a long time as well, right? So now we're going to go to Steve. Stephen Primosh is the guy at economic development who you really want to know because he's the banker, he's the lender, background in banking, right? Commercial lending.
Yeah, I spent about 10 years before joined economic development, been in economic development for about 8 years now.
Right, right. So you were in community banks, it looks like Harbor Bank and Bank of Annapolis.
Yep.
Okay, so you run a bunch of programs for economic development with about 100 business loans that are out right now. I know one of our panelists is a recipient of one of those loans, but we'll get to that later. I know that you and the team, I've started to meet more regularly with economic development. We do our weekly calls, and I've been really impressed how your team works. In case you can speak to this as well. Maybe it's because it's a crisis, but you guys really operate as a team and you've come up with some really innovative ideas that we're going to talk about. So let's hear about what's going on over at economic development.
Yeah, and through this whole time period, we've been talking to businesses, both via email, on the phone, and we started out with the first 2 weeks just being in crisis mode and just listening to people, listening to our loan customers, listening to businesses in general. And we've also put out a couple surveys, and we know what businesses want. The number one thing they need was money. But we know there's over 50,000 businesses, including sole proprietors here in the county. And we can't print money like the federal government. So there was no way for us to just bail businesses out. So we, at Economic Development, we're pushing them towards the federal programs, explaining PPP, EIDL, all the state programs that were out there. We're definitely walking them through because things were changing on an hourly basis, literally. So we tried to keep them as up to date as possible on those programs, knowing that there would be a role for us as businesses begin to reopen. And so the program
that was an interesting conversation. I remember when we had this because when we got our allocation of federal funds, $101 million for Anne Arundel County, we knew, okay, we're going to want to do some kind of a business assistance program. And your team looked around at what other counties had done, and we looked at what the state had done, where they announced a program with 130 million, and it was gone so quickly. There were so many more applications than there was money that a lot of businesses have still not gotten a response to their applications. So we didn't want to be in that position where we put a little drop in the bucket. So you came up with something completely different that might actually have a real impact.
And I definitely agree with you, but I definitely applaud the other counties for trying. I mean,
Yes.
I had the same instinct personally when we initially this all rolled out, because we are really good at lending at Anne Arundel Economic Development. We're one of the leaders in the state that does this. And so my initial jerk reaction was, we got to help. But so I applaud them. I'm going to say the other counties in the state for the hard work that they've been doing. They're working overtime. I'm talking to my counterparts, and they're working night and day. So the economic development, I don't blame them or say they shouldn't have done it. It's just we decided to go a different direction and help the businesses reopen. And our general plan is we understand a couple things. One, the way people buy stuff has changed. People want delivery. People want to buy stuff online. They want to pick it up. And it's a safety issue. Me personally, I have pre-existing illnesses, and I'm not going to be going to Walmart at a big box, even when I am available to. I'm not going to go to a ball game. And I think there's a segment of the buying public that has changed the way they're buying. So that's part of our program. And we also know, as we're talking daily about, is how do we open safely, right? How do we want the economy to open back up? We want people to go back to work. But if you don't do it in a safe fashion, A, this may rebound, and B, there's just not going to be the consumer confidence that Mark was talking about. of people wanting to go back out and spend. So the program that we came up with was grants to help businesses reopen safely and pivot their business model. So we have a list of all the possible eligible uses on our websites, but it's stuff like dividers that or markers on the ground that will put people 6 feet apart. But the other big part of this is that e-commerce and website. If you don't have an e-commerce and a website explaining that you're open for business, this is how you operate now. I mean, I can speak to my own experiences of how me and my wife shop too for stuff. We're calling places and saying, okay, how do we pick it up from you? How do we pay? Can we pay on credit card over the phone? So if you're not doing those things now, you need to get up and running to doing that. And we are here to help with that. So the grant can be up to $10,000 for small businesses here in the county. You just have to have 50 or less employees and be in good standing. We're not going to make this a big bureaucratic process where there's a ton of documents. There is an application process, and we're going to do a little bit of due diligence, make sure you're really an existing business and you need the help. But other than that, we don't want to turn this into a big bureaucracy process. So yeah, I mean, we can help with dividers, we can help with the e-commerce, the website. And the other thing I'll say, I've been getting a lot of questions about, do other things qualify? And if it's going to help you pivot your business model or open back up safely, just make the case to us. I had someone come and say, oh, we're a restaurant, we want to expand our seating and go outdoors. Would you fund tables? The list that we have on the EDC websites, it's not all exhaustive. It's not, you must be one of those things, because we're not business owners. We don't know what's best for them to every business. We haven't thought through every segment of how we can help. But yeah, if you're a restaurant and you want to buy tables because you're going to expand your outdoor seating, good, let's do it. You're a farmer that didn't used to sell at farmers market and you need a shed now to separate your produce, sure, why not? So we're going to be really flexible in what we can do to help people open safely.
So just to be clear, to back up a little bit, we announced this just last week, this new program. The application portal will open up, with projecting first of the month, but you have on your website, your economic development, Anne Arundel what is it's AAEDC, right?
AAEDC.org, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, they can get information. It's the Customer and Employee Protection Program, grant program. And so the information is all there. The applications start going in as soon as that portal is up, when it's up, first week of June.
We expect first week of June, we'll be able to take applications.
Okay.
We also, if you go to our website, we have a very detailed outline of the program, what's eligible, you know, what's not. And we have a frequently asked questions you can go through too. If your question is not answered by those frequently asked questions, you can send an email to grants@aedc.org, or you can give us a call on our main line and we'll get an answer to you. Because we've been fielding all kinds of different questions. And honestly, this is something new to us. So we haven't thought through everything. So we actually, we appreciate feedback and questions. It will help us run the program better when it does roll out. So we encourage the public to please contact us if they see something that's an issue, or if they just want to know if they qualify. Because if they have that question, other people do too.
So we announced this, I believe it was Thursday last week. How many inquiries have you gotten so far?
Last time I looked at it, which was this morning, we had received about 800.
Okay. And as you said, this is, it's a new program. Everything is new. All of county government is shifting right now to try to meet the needs that didn't exist before. We've set aside $5 million. We'll see how that goes. And there's the potential for more. We have to see how it goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be able to, I think we're going to have some really small grants. I think some people just want some PPE for their salon and it'll be $200. And I think they'll bigger, you know, closer to 50 employees may have bigger needs, and the website improvements can be expensive too. So I think we're getting a very amount. I think we'll be able to help 1,000 or 2,000 businesses. That's my general thought.
Okay. All right. So let's jump over to Keisha, who also works in economic development for the county and was part of the team that put this program together. And first of all, do you have anything to add? I should note that Keisha not only does this, but she runs her own consulting business on economic development. She was the director of the economic development department at on the Eastern Shore in Dorchester County before coming to Anne Arundel. So has been in this game for 19 years and is also an ordained minister. So please pray for all of us. But Keisha, what would you like to add that you haven't heard so far about how businesses are being impacted and how the team over there at Economic Development is responding?
Just that, this is certainly an unprecedented time in the lives of everyone, actually, and business owners. And being a business owner myself, while I can't exactly say that I can feel the pain of what they're going through now, because this is unprecedented, I do know how it feels to be worried about payroll and to be living check to paycheck in a business. I had an experience speaking with a business owner where she only had $500 left in her bank account when COVID-19 hit her. And she had only been open for 10 months. And she's calling. That was one of the first calls that I fielded. And, she's calling because she wants to know what to do. At that time, she could not apply for any type of resources that were being offered. She couldn't apply for unemployment or anything. And so speaking to these individuals and these business owners, I really try to let them know that as a business owner, I can certainly feel some of your pain, but this does require a repivoting, a retooling so that businesses are looking at whether or not they need to cut back on some expenses and become more lean and also nimble. And we have to learn as a business owner to be nimble forever now at this point, because we don't know what other current come where it may knock us off a little bit. So my motto right now to businesses and individuals is to start, once you get back into this and you've looked at your business plan, to really start to try and put some money away. As with our own personal finances, we want to have an emergency fund. And certainly I understand that everyone's not able to do that, but to try and put some money away and start retooling by looking at their business plan right now and really trying to pivot. And that's one of the things with the grant program. It's allowing businesses to pivot and look at how are we going to do things once we're back open and we're out of COVID-19. So this grant is going to help them get there. Be it if they need services from an accountant or a lawyer, because there are many businesses that are questioning the legality of reopening. If someone comes into their establishment and contracts COVID-19, what type of weight is that going to put on the business owner? So some of those questions that they may have, they may need legal services and advice. So the grant can help them with that. Partitions, I think Steve mentioned that, for the hairstylist. So we want to make sure that not only the customers are protected, but the employees are protected. And I believe that this grant will do that. Because again, we are in unprecedented times and we cannot solve this problem or come to a solution with precedented resolutions, because we've never seen anything like this before. So it's going to require a shift in our thinking and certainly being positive, because there's so much negativity on Facebook and social media. I just believe that we just have to speak the positive and come up with solutions together, because the way we're going to get through this and build back better is joining together, coming together in unity, and really trying to help these businesses. So EDC is here as a resource, not only coming out of COVID, but we have many programs available to help businesses even after we're back to some type of normalcy. And we're here as a business advocate for the business community. So we're here to help them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, when people call economic development, some clearly just, they need advice.
Yes.
And I know that we've talked about part of the beauty of this program that we're putting together is it puts your team in a position to be advising these businesses in how to reopen safely, best practices. We have the health department to consult on some of that. The way I see it, this could be very labor intensive. and a lot of person hours to provide that direct technical assistance to the businesses. I know you sent me an incredible back to work guidelines from the Professional Beauty Association. And I know there are other things like that where trade associations are putting together guidelines, ideas that people can implement in their businesses to prevent the spread of the infection. And that you also, you work with an organization called SCORE. So can you just tell us something about who can people turn to and how can you help just with advice?
So we certainly want to be the economic development offices. Of course, there's one in every county of the state of Maryland. So in Anne Arundel, we want to be the resource that businesses reach out to at onset, at first. We want to be the first line of communication. And I say that because we have the resources and the connections, not only locally, but throughout the state. So we have specialized industry sector experts in our office that's on our team. We have 4 business development colleagues, and we all specialize in various industry sectors. So first and foremost, we have specialized team members and experts that are there to help with the technical assistance, but we also work with our SCORE partners and the Small Business Development Center. So
what is SCORE?
SCORE, yes, SCORE. And
what is it?
Go ahead.
What is it?
SCORE stands for, oh, help me out, Steve. It's retired. It's an acronym.
Kind of retired executives.
It stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. There you go. Can't remember that.
That kind of explains what it is too.
Okay. Yeah. And so they are experienced professionals in their area of whatever industry sector that is. So SCORE has a checklist, and this is on our AAEDC website as well, and it's called Opening Business After the Coronavirus Shutdown. And so it goes through a litany of things that a business do to prepare to reopen. One is to educate yourself, and that's just staying up to date on the local resources, the state and federal resources. And as Steve mentioned, we're there to help them through the EIDL and the PPP assistance and all of that. Second is to assess your finances, which at your cash flow, looking at your future forecast. So if you've done a business plan, you already know what your business plan looks like, but it's time to just tweak that right now. Adjust your business model, as I talked about, becoming leaner, looking at your expenses, things of that nature. Planning your staffing, looking at to see if you need any of the employees that you had going into COVID. And identify at each stage of opening how much staff and how many people you're going to need in order to reopen. Then the next item, keep your workplace clean. So it's talking about cleaning and disinfecting the workplace. So it's a whole checklist there. And then implementing social distancing, right? Like the X's we've seen, like the models that we've seen in the stores. So we want to make sure that that's being implemented. Set up health screening. Thermometers, the grant can help with that as well, and educate the employees on the COVID-19 symptoms as well. That's very important that the employees can recognize the symptoms. And then marketing your business as well. A lot of businesses are not online. They do not have online exposure. This is the time to get your online presence. Take advantage again of applying for the grant.
So you could almost look through that checklist and you could come up with the things that one should apply for in the grant.
Yeah, absolutely. And then resources, just the CDC, the health officer, the health department page with Anne Arundel County, looking at your resources that are local, just to stay up to date on everything that's going on. So again, this is on our EDC website, and they can print that off and just go through that checklist to help them for preparing to reopen.
AAEDC.org. Okay,
yes.
Great. Mm-hmm. That's really good stuff. And this is the conversation I think that we should be having with the health department about how to reopen our economy is that kind of level of detail. And I know that's what our health officer wants to do as well. It takes time and it's a lot of work, but we have to do it. So, We also have Steve Rice, and Steve is actually work in plan and zoning officially for the city of Annapolis, right? But within plan and zoning, that's where they have their economic development team. So, and Steve is, I just read your resume for the first time, Steve, and I got to say some of it. You're one of those people who goes to school and goes to school and goes to school, right? I mean, you got your undergraduate degree at Morehouse, and then you went to Vanderbilt and you got your MBA, and then you thought that wasn't enough, so you had to go to Harvard and get your master's in public administration, and and then you worked in Howard County, and then you worked in the Baltimore Urban League. So and you just came to Annapolis how long ago? Not that long ago, right?
Yeah, just about 10 months ago, nine, 10 months ago.
All right. So tell us what's going on in Annapolis, how it's different from some other areas, and what you're doing to help.
Sure. So Annapolis is, I guess, a little bit unique within Anne Arundel County, because we are, I guess, an urban city, a small urban city within a larger, more suburban and rural jurisdiction. So we are a little bit different, and we try to adjust and calibrate for those differences. Early on in the COVID-19 kind of, crisis and the lead up, our focus really was on serving as a one-stop shop for resources. Our economic development shop, we launched 6 or 7 pages from our economic development page that provided information on the state programs and the federal programs, on the SBA loans, on the SBA grants. We broke things up into, if you're a small business, go here. If you are Spanish speaking, go there. And we really tried to be as comprehensive as possible, so that with all of the different information that was coming through, we wanted people to be able to say, okay, I know I can go to Annapolis and get, the essentials of what I need, high level, and then from there, they'll serve as a conduit to other resources and so forth. So that's what we try to do for Annapolis-based businesses. More recently, we have, shifted and our focus, looking at recovery and relief and recovery and trying to save businesses. The mayor decided to launch a small business recovery task force in April. And so we have over 40 business leaders coming from the Annapolis community. They are folks from every ward, from every neighborhood, and almost every industry. So we have a very diverse group of business leaders. Two are actually on this panel, Mark Kleinschmidt and Keisha Haith. And the task force has been given a couple of different charges. The task force is charged with providing immediate relief and assistance to Annapolis businesses that are, kind of in crisis. And also the task force is charged with coming up with recommendations for policies that will help businesses down the line. And so to support, the businesses that are currently, in crisis and they need help, we've done a couple of things. We launched some business counseling workshops with a gentleman by the name of Patrick Sherney. He is a retired banker, and he walked business owners through the state programs, the federal programs. He provided some technical assistance, and he gave them, kind of the tools and the confidence to move forward when it came to, financial planning. He also brought in and other people to help, augment his presentation. So we had 46 participants over 3 days of workshops. The feedback has been very positive, and so we wanted to provide some real value for the business community out the gate. The other thing that we did in working with Mark was roll out a survey, and the survey was very important because the survey has given us a lot of good data and information with which we can use to help feed the recommendations that we're going to eventually put before the mayor and the city council. And it gave us a snapshot, of course, of the stress that Annapolis-based businesses were under. The next thing that we have been doing and what we've been working on the last I'd say two or 3 weeks is we've been hosting a number of industry calls. So our task force is set up into 5 different committees. I won't go through all of them, but one of the committees is our launch and reopening committee, and under that committee there are 5 subcommittees. We have a bar and restaurant subcommittee. We have a lodging subcommittee. We have a maritime subcommittee, a women and minority business subcommittee. We have a nonprofit subcommittee, and we have some other groups, kind of interest groups as well. So what we've been trying to do is, through these kind of all hands industry calls, we've been trying to make sure that we do 3 things. Number one, we want to provide the businesses within that particular industry with an overview of what's happening from a policy standpoint from the federal and the state level, just so they get some insight into the policy machinations. Typically, we have a business association president, someone who is very actively engaged, especially with what's happening at the state level in lobbying and serving on state councils and task forces, and providing information and input and recommendations to the governor. So they kind of give a policy overview so businesses can see what the landscape is. We follow that up with a discussion of best practices, and it's not best practices now, but it's anticipated or planned best practices for when businesses are starting to slowly reopen. So we're anticipating social distancing requirements will still be in place. We're anticipating PPE will need to be widely used and dispersed. We're anticipating levels of cleanliness will have to be increased. We're anticipating all these things. So factoring those into the equation, what will be the best practices for your business, for your industry, looking down the line? And then the third thing that we try to do with these calls is to solicit recommendations directly from the business owners for the task force. So if there are things that the city can do now, things that the city could possibly do down the line, we want to get that feedback because that will help to feed our report. And
when does the report come out, and is it going to be publicly available?
So the report, our goal is to have the report ready July 1 for the mayor and the council. However, given the pace of activity with Governor Hogan and lifting of various restrictions, the report will not necessarily coincide with what's happening from a regulatory standpoint coming from the state. So we're going to have to push out some things sooner where we generally have consensus and we have some good direction, push out some things sooner than that July 1 date. And yes, the report will be readily available for the public. The other thing we're doing is that, I think it was actually it was this week we kicked off, actually the end of last week, we kicked off through our business advisory committee on the Small Business Recovery Task Force, a one-on-one counseling session. So we have, on the task force, we have bankers, we have lawyers, we have real estate, developers and specialists. We have people with all different kinds of skill sets. And we have a group serving on our business advisory committee that is volunteering to provide free one-on-one counseling sessions for Annapolis business owners. And so
has that started yet? Are there?
Yes, that has started. So if you go to the Small Business Recovery Task Force page, that you can find directly a link to off of the Annapolis.gov page. If you, that's the landing page for the task force now. Is all the business owner has to do is put their information in, identify what sort of help they would like to receive, and some basic information, and they'll be matched with a volunteer counselor on the task force. So we're trying to do a lot of things to add value and help the community and get through this.
Good. That's good stuff. So far, we've heard from people who this isn't anything negative, but you have steady paychecks. Mark, maybe that's questionable. Maybe it's questionable for all of us here, in the next 6 months to a year, because local government is also is in trouble. But the smaller businesses, especially these ones who have a month's worth of expenses in the bank, that's not the case. And I know that the stresses are almost unbearable in some cases. And I'm gonna ask somebody some questions that I'm hoping will give people some hope and make people think creatively and outside the box. It's not possible in every case, but Jaylene Fonseca runs the Jessie J's Latin-inspired kitchen in Churchton. Hello, Jaylene.
Hello.
And this is down in South County, down where I live, not far from where I live. And it used to be known as Swamp Circle Saloon, right?
Yes.
Some described it as a biker bar. I thought it was a really nice biker bar, but it had nice outdoor seating. It was a pretty popular place, and it went under. And Jaylene and her husband Ramirez, right, set up business there a year ago. And tell us how it's been going since you started, and then how you've adapted.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we opened a year ago in South County, and so we're new to the community. We've had tremendous support from the community from the beginning.
With a loan, I might add, right, from the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation.
With a loan from the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, and not only that, but also with their support. So they have the banking aspect, which we've talked about today. And they also have, which I think Keisha mentioned a little bit, the aspect of it as well. They have helped people to help with permitting processes and many other areas that they can help small businesses. So we were fortunate to learn about them early on in our process from the funding point of the business. And we've been able to develop that relationship and take advantage of a lot of the benefits that they have for us. And their benefits, they're free to us. I mean, the loan has, some interest and fees attached to it. But as far as the consulting and some of the help that they offer, it's completely free to businesses. So I do encourage businesses to check out that website and see how AAEDC could be a resource to them. But we opened a year ago. From the beginning, it has exceeded our expectations, thankfully. I know 8 weeks ago, us as managers of the restaurant, we were meeting to make plans on having this grand opening of the outside bar and have a big party. And in that moment, literally, that we were having our meeting, Governor Hogan came on Facebook Live and said, no more dine-in service for restaurants. And it was definitely a stressful moment. And we had to rethink how we would be doing things. Obviously, plans to reopen the bar were put on hold. I think our first concern, as well as probably many business owners, were our people and how we would be able to continue to support them. And it was really uncertain and scary times. Luckily for us, we were set up with online ordering, for example, and had a pretty decent carry-out business already established. So we leaned into that, and we've continued down that path, and we've had unbelievable support. I think a lot of that is the community that we're in. It's a special place. Anybody that knows South County, I think, agrees. with that. And I'd say, we're not the only business that has been able to shift and try to make the best out of it. I am sensitive to many businesses that have had to shut down and haven't had, the options that we have or others have had. But it's also been inspiring to see from other businesses how they've been able to adapt. And, I hope others can also be encouraged by this and think of ways that they can uniquely and authentically adapt their business. I mean, a local kind of secondary education place offering virtual classes or putting on a virtual play production that the kids were working on, a local art studio that's giving art lessons on Facebook Live. And if you have the supplies, great. But if not, they can deliver the supplies to you and you can continue to support the business like that. Local gym.
Tell us what a quesadilla kit is. I know that's an example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, so today we partnered with a local business in Deal, the Polymath Place, and they put on a virtual cooking class for kids. And Jessie J's provided the kits, all the ingredients they needed to do the cooking class. So the kids came today, they ordered online, bought quesadilla making kits, took them home, and then virtually joined a Zoom, just like we're on today, with the owner of the Polymath Place. And she gave the instruction. My daughter participated as well. And kids cooked dinner tonight for multiple families in South County. And it was a lot of fun. And so that's another creative way, businesses are adapting.
Are you going to do that again? Because I have 10-year-old twin boys and I would love for them to cook dinner. Can you help?
Yeah, let's do it. And they're
doing it again. Yeah.
So you can check their site as well. They're partnering with different restaurants in the area and doing it. So it's not just with us.
Wow, that's really cool. So you've engaged with the community in ways that there's obviously some loyalty that is being repaid. And what is Operation Open Tab?
Operation Open Tab is something that was started by Cleaning Made Easy, another business that had to sort of put their normal business operations on hold, but we're really wanted to think of ways to support their community. And so Cleaning Made Easy started Operation Open Tab, where businesses and individuals would donate money to this fund. And there's 6 to 8 participating restaurants in the area that provide free meals to families that are impacted by COVID-19 or have been laid off. So we spent like 2 weeks raising money, and then we started feeding families. We've been feeding families for 3 weeks now. Each restaurant has a designated day. Family calls ahead of time and pre-orders their meal for the following day. No questions asked, no judgment. It's just a kind of extending a helping hand and giving back to our community that has been so supportive of us. So it's been really exciting. We've got some really generous donations that have come in, and we've been able to give that right back into the community.
So I don't want to get too far into you publicly giving information out about your business or anything, but business now compared to before.
So
and we understand you're different.
To other businesses, but and it could be because there's just less options for people to kind of go out and be entertained. But our business is actually seeing some growth post in the last 8 weeks since before our trends. So really amazing. Kind of
that's great. Yeah.
But it's been true.
Yeah. Yeah. So your message is think creatively. There may be an opportunity out there, huh?
Yeah. And think creatively and what are ways that you can authentically, your business, reach out. So what works for Jessie J's isn't going to work for everybody else, but there's something probably unique about you that you can tap into and develop and drive that loyalty. Like I was mentioning, a local gym is offering free live classes, their group sessions, free on Facebook. Anybody, whether you're a member or not, anybody can join. So what's that going to do to their business when they are able to reopen? They're probably establishing and reaching more people and establishing this consumer perception that might attract more people to their business when they're able to reopen. So things like that.
That is good advice. And it's good hearing it from somebody who's in business, living this right now. So thank you for sharing that. We do have some questions that have been coming in from people on Facebook Live. I think some might have come in before, and I want to whip through a few of those. We've only got a few minutes. We don't want to go too far over our hour, even though I guess nobody's really, we have no commercial breaks to worry about, so we don't have to stop at exactly 7. So from Courtney, for the Economic Development Grant, since it opens the first week of June, well, when will money be awarded?
That's a really good question, and it's going to depend on the demand. We're going to try to help as many people as quickly as possible. We have a whole process in place. Our whole team has been dedicated to handling these grant applications when we get them. We will acknowledge receipt. We'll make sure that it's complete and give you that feedback. And then we're just going to be processing them as quickly as possible with need in mind. If the businesses that have most been affected by quarantine rules will get preference. So if you're a hair salon that's been shut down and have not been able to operate, you'll get preference over a state farm agency who now has people teleworking. So how long will it take? I can't give an exact day number, but
are you going to go through them all and then make decisions, or are you going to approve as you go?
We're going to approve as we go.
Okay.
Or else it would take too long for the money to get on the street. And we are going to have a dedicated bank account and be ACHing the money directly to the client. So it's not a check process that you got to wait months on, and you'll know when it's on its way. So we'll try to inform you as we go through the process, but rest assured, just like every other grant program, we expect a very high demand, and we'll be working our butts off to get it done, but it's going to take some time.
Well said. Yeah. Okay. So you are going to be giving the grants out as you go, and
That's
so
correct.
First come, first serve. You're going to go through them as they come in, then, right?
Yeah. I mean, we are going to give priority to businesses that we feel are most affected by the quarantine rules.
Right. Okay. And are there limitations as to who can apply? You've already said what types of businesses and how long in business. Does that matter?
Yes, you do have to have been in business starting at least March 29th, 2020, which is when the stay-at-home orders were issued. Types of business on our website, there's some small exclusions, but in general, sole proprietors count, LLCs count, corporations count. So we wanted to leave it open to as many small businesses as possible.
Okay. And I know there have been questions about nonprofits, whether they can apply. At this point, this is for businesses. We have other nonprofit grants through Anne Arundel Community Development Services and other sources. So for now, it's for businesses, for profits. Okay. Will Anne Arundel help businesses get PPE for their workers from Brooks? I know the answer to that is yes. That's what this program is to do. Or maybe the question is, do we give it to them directly? And I guess the answer to that is through our Office of Emergency Management and Health. They are providing some PPE to assisted living facilities and some other for-profit health clinics, case by case. But for non-health businesses, I believe they're on their own.
Yeah, I mean, in general,
yeah.
I would, but I will mention one thing is we did compile a list of Anne Arundel County-based businesses, and we're encouraging, just like everybody else, to shop local, because that money stays in the community. So we don't have any, we haven't vetted these businesses in any way other than the fact that they're based here in Anne Arundel County. So we're not saying.
Okay, you're talking about, so on the site, you have a list of local vendors that sell PPE.
PPE, that create websites, that do all kinds of things that will qualify for this grant. But once again, we're not vouching for them because we haven't vetted them, but we generally know that they're located here in the county, and we do have some experience with them, but we don't. So if you can use a local Anne Arundel County business, please.
Okay. And so I think what Brooks is asking is, does the county provide PPE? Help businesses get PPE for their workers? The best way to answer that is since it depends on the kind of business, and I think health and assisted living are the ones that we tend to do. But to call 410-222-0600 which is the call center at the Office of Emergency Management. And they do have supplies. They're in short supply, unfortunately, but make the request there. Okay, small businesses need more logistical support, not just money, specific instructions on equipment protocol, a checklist, so to speak. Where can we get this guidance? Julie, your answer is Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation's website. Keisha talked about that. As well as through the Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce and the, if you go to annapolis.gov, Stephen said, there's also direct counseling from your volunteers, correct? Okay. We need a realistic and smart timeline so that we can make good business decisions. Without a timeline, we are strangling ourselves. Spending money on payroll with zero income and no path to understand when we can expect to earn revenue to cover our extreme losses. What is the estimated timeline? That is the many $million question. We talked a little about this in the beginning, that the best that we've got this federal government, the state government, and now the county government has gotten involved because the governor transferred some of the authority on this opening question to counties, although there's very little authority. Looking at the rate of infection, looking at the deaths, whether that's dropping the number of deaths, hospital capacity, whether they're overwhelmed or not, whether PPE exists, how much testing is taking place, whether contact tracing is taking place. These are the metrics. They're not really standards by which one even can say when all of these are met, then X, Y, or Z is going to happen. The governor has the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of reopening, and he's taken parts of it one at a time. So the unfortunate answer is that we don't really know, but which makes it really difficult to do business, because business planning is all about certainty. So we are hoping soon. And I think the only thing to do is to plan for it, and then to look at the PPP, the federal program, and figure out whether it works for you, whether it's better for your employees to be on unemployment right now and available to come back, hopefully. I mean, these are the difficult decisions that people have to and can get counseling from all of your organizations to help make those decisions. But I wish I had a better answer on the timeline. Okay.
Stuart, can I add one thing?
Yes, please do.
I just want to go back to the question about our website. There is a orange COVID-19 banner on our AAEDC website. And if they click that, that'll give them all of the COVID-19 resources.
Okay. Okay. And then if you go to the Anne Arundel County website, aacounty.org, there's a banner at the top of that one too. And you can find all of the resources that the county has, including maps of food distribution centers and program for eviction prevention for renters, and all the health department information as well. So it's almost like, I think it was maybe Mark on your webinar last week, it may have been there was a word for it, when there's just so much information, you drown in it. And that's a little bit how it is right now. There's a ton of information.
I think we were calling it an infodemic.
Infodemic, right?
Yeah.
That's it, exactly. Okay. And yeah. And I think I'll do one more question here, which is another difficult one. Could you please address hair salons, as the one customer rule does not help small businesses? We need to be open up at least 50%, if not more. Also, the PPE loan has a lot of unknowns and no one to get information from. The PPP loans, of course, you go to your bank to get, and they disappear fast. I highly recommend the local community banks over the big chains. They've been a lot more interested in helping. Do you have a good answer to that? Either, I guess, Steve, you're the banker.
Sure. I mean, you have to apply directly with your bank. In Anne Arundel, Bank of Glen Burnie, Severn Bank have been doing a great job in getting these loans out the door. I mean, I think the stat that I heard nationwide was 65% of these PPP loans came from community banks. As far as I'm aware, the money
So
is,
who are the community banks in Anne Arundel?
the biggest ones are Severn and Bank of Glen Burnie. Those two.
Okay.
There are some smaller ones, but I don't know their participation in the PPP program. But as far as I'm aware, the PPP loans are still available. And
Yeah.
in addition to the small bank idea, one of the other things I've been telling people is there are online platforms that fintech companies that lend money, and they've started participating in this PPP program. And I have heard back from some of our existing businesses here in the county that said, we took that advice, we went to Cabbage or PayPal, and they've gotten these PPP loans from where they didn't have an existing relationship with them. So we have that list on our website, aabc.org, of all the fintech lenders. They don't care about whether you have a relationship like some of the big banks did.
Okay. Okay. And the other part of the question, the more difficult one, is please do something to allow more customers into the hair salons. And one person is not enough. You can bet this is a conversation that we're going to be having with our committee tomorrow and in the next week or two. The guidelines from the Professional Beauty Association are the kinds of things that are really helpful. So we're going to take these to the health officer and really try to assess what the impact would be of allowing some greater number, whether it's a certain number per square foot, along with guidelines for safety. But we recognize that it's not much of an opening when it's just one customer and it's a large salon that normally has a bunch of people working there. So, and as a result, some aren't bothering to open because it's not profitable to do that way. Or you can just be like me and your hair just kind of grows and you have to actually wet it down to keep it from sticking out with wings on the side. And it's getting longer and longer and longer. And I'm starting to look like I looked back in college, but maybe that's okay. So these are difficult questions and definitely not laughing matters, but we do have to have a little bit of sense of humor every once in a while. So we should wrap it up. I really thank all of you. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot on all of these Build Back Better sessions, and hopefully others are as well. Please keep up the great work. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's get this economy going again. Thank you.
Thank you.